Imagine being so good that you're not just Radiant, but you're Radiant on 3 accounts at the same time and have been rank 1 countless times. And on top of that, you only play one agent and that agent is Yoru. Sounds pretty ridiculous, right? Well, that's Eggsterr. And I haven't even mentioned that he literally just won challengers in NA. So what makes Eggsterr so good? Is it simply that he just outshoots everyone and his mechanics are insane? Or is it that Yoru is so good and he kind of just out-gimmicks people because people aren't used to playing against it? Honestly, after watching his gameplay, I kind of feel like it's neither. I think Eggsterr is actually just really smart. Let's start with his attack half. Something Eggsterr is really good at is his entries, and it's not really in the same way that you would expect. When most people entry, their character is actually moving forward. They have to hold W in some fashion. But because Eggsterr is playing Yoru, he can use that downtime to do other things. Let's take a look at this round. He insta-TPs off rip and then kind of just runs up with his team. And then now he's able to use his clone and use his flash right before taking the TP. Now you might actually look at this and be like, well, what's so special about that? And it's the fact that he's able to use 3 pieces of util at the same time. With most agents in this game, you can kind of get away with using 1 to 2 abilities on an execute before you have to pull your gun out and then kind of just run out with your team. And that's because you're trying to prioritize spacing. So for example, if I'm playing Clove and I'm dropping my smokes down, and then I use my decay, that's gonna add some time before I can run out of the smoke and entry with my team. But in Eggsterr's case, because the Yoru TP is traveling, he can use that downtime while the TP is moving for him to throw his clone and his flash so that when he executes, he has all of those abilities kind of adding into the execute. Let's jump over to another round where he's executing on A site. His TP is already down before the round starts, and then immediately he throws his clone. But notice how he's actually holding A ramp while his TP is traveling. Now he actually doesn't get contact there, but you can imagine how valuable that would be because he's able to hold the space for his teammates as they also scale. And then once his TP has traveled far enough and his teammates has made it out of the choke point, he can take a look at the minimap and time his entry off of the info he gets. Hopefully you guys are kind of understanding now, but let's wrap up with one more round to kind of showcase his entries. He starts off the round doing a pretty standard flash TP to take A space. Device flash doesn't ping for info, so maybe he feels a bit more confident going pretty quickly. But what I want to highlight is how he enters into A site here. He actually doesn't use a flash. He's just timing his TP and his clone throw when his teammates open the door, and also with his Skydog here. And as he's waiting for his TP to travel, all he's doing is looking at the minimap to play off of the info from the Skydog. On top of that, he takes the TP only after it's crossed the choke point. So this means that if the player Heaven was holding the angle, he would have to worry about both left and right side. And the position that he TP'd into was really only safe because they opened tree door, which would cause that player to fall back, and his Skydog is clearing the close angles on his side of main. For some players this might seem really obvious, but what we're really highlighting here is the fact that his minimap awareness is so high because he's able to utilize the downtime on his TP traveling. And based on my experience, a lot of entries specifically struggle with that minimap awareness. And a quick plug, if you guys are enjoying the breakdown of Eggsterr, then you guys might want to join the dojo where I do pro reviews like this every week to find out more tips like this. Now let's switch gears a little bit, because you can't really just rush every single round on attack, even though that would be nice. So what does Eggsterr do on rounds where he's not rushing? So a default. Let's take a look at the pistol round of Lotus. What you will immediately notice is the fact that he's not with the team, he's lurking. This kind of allows him to see if the enemy team is fighting C-mount. It also allows him to get the orb, and in this case, it allows him to bait the vice wall as he regroups to his teammates. He makes sure to calm to his teammates that they don't overfight and just wait so that he can kind of create the pressure and maybe even pull some rotates over. Basically, on defaults, instead of being with the team, he will play on an extremity and then potentially regroup with the team later. But that doesn't mean that he'll always do it silently. Taking a look at one of the rounds on Split, he literally starts the round by flashing and peeking. And from there, he's just hunting for a fight. Despite getting spotted several times, he doesn't retreat and take his TP. Eventually, he does get a kill, but immediately gets traded. And the reason why I'm highlighting this round in particular is because he's not really lurking all the time when he plays the extremities on defaults. Oftentimes, he will just start on his side of the map and just fight a lot. And that creates a ton of pressure for his teammates also. Okay, so to quickly summarize his attack half, he has really good entries by using his TP and filling up the downtime by looking at the minimap or by holding another angle. And on top of that, he knows what to do when he's not entering with the team, which is typically by playing extremities on the defaults. Mixing it up if he's playing with a lot of noise, taking fights, or going for a bit more of a lurky playstyle. Now, let's take a look at his defense half. So with Yoru on defense, what I would have thought was that he would put his TP on one site and then he plays the other site and then would just immediately fast rotate if there is sign of life. Essentially abusing the fact that he can play extremities and fast rotate to both instead of having to play somewhere in the middle of the map or in spawn because he's playing Yoru. But that's actually not what I think makes Eggsterr so good. The more common thing that I saw Eggsterr do on his defense is the fact that he would play extremity and actually anchor that bomb site rather than fast rotating. Taking a look at this round, he's playing A anchor at flower, playing against a Viper that typically lurks. But his teammate died in mid, and if I was him, I would have taken that TP, anticipating a B split. Instead, he goes for a re-clear into A main and gets the kill on the lurker. This is a very high risk but also high reward play, and I typically do this in the context of the mid round, which I call a mid round re-clear. But he's already doing it very early into the round. And now he's still able to take the TP just in case they were going to do a B split. So he takes it and then he throws his TP back to A just in case they end up going back to A. Again, his teammates are dying in mid, but he makes the decision to go and find the other lurker, which thankfully he does this time, and he kills the clove. And it's the same pattern again. He TPs back to the other side, throws another TP, and then just walks out onto site. And that nets him a beautiful 4K that he wouldn't be able to do on any other agent, but more importantly, that he wouldn't be able to do if he was playing fast rotate. Now, these plays are typically not going to be 4Ks. They're more so going to be maybe 1 or 2 kills. And we see that here on pistol rounds in another split game. His duo is making comms that sounds like it's going to be fast A. And again, this is where I would TP and just be like, oh, it's A. But instead, he walks up to see if it's actually a fake, and maybe he wanted to grab the orb. But notice how dialed in he is on his mechanics here. He's expecting a fight, and he gets it, and he wins it. Now, unfortunately, he does get traded, but that info and that kill he got pretty much ruined the enemy team's fake plan completely. Quickly looking at another round, I wouldn't say this one's as, mind-blowing, I guess, for me. This one, there's just some mid-pressure, and he just decides to stay, and he gets rewarded with the kill on the clove. But I guess the reason why it stood out so much to me is because I fast rotate a ton. And typically I find that that works really well in ranked because over rotating will allow you to get more gun duels. But his patience here definitely catches me off guard because I would have thought Yoru would be the master of fast rotating. But he's got a bit more nuance to it, and I can appreciate that. And when I say nuance, I do mean nuance, because in the same game, a very similar thing happens where they rush A, but he does take the fast rotate TP this time. As he's running in, he's reading the minimap, and he throws his TP back to B just in case that there's a lurk, and he's committing to the mid-round re-clear here. He jumps off of heaven into A main smoke with his clone and his flash and gets 2. Now this over-rotate into a re-clear is something I talk about all the time when I work with my clients, and it's basically to avoid the circumstance on where you rotate, they cancel, and you're not sure if they're re-hitting or they're just gonna go to the other side and you have no info. So playing this aggressively after you over-rotate at least allows you to confirm whether or not they're there or not, and if they aren't, you can just take the TP, in this case, to go back to the other side, or maybe even go for a fast flank. So we've established that he will fast rotate sometimes. Let's try and understand when he does. Let's take a look at this round. I'd say this one's a bit more obvious. He's playing for an A rush, Sky Flash sees nothing, so chances are there's probably not a lurker, and his teammate calls B, so he can just take this one. It sounds like it's a full commit, so instead of throwing his TP back to A, he just throws another TP in spawn just in case he's getting a kill and he wants to get out. And he goes for the flood and only gets 1, but it's a good round of fast rotate, and it's a pretty simple one, a pretty standard one at least. Now, this next round on Lotus, I would say is a bit more because of the map dynamic. Typically, if you don't see the enemy team dump util for the A fight, they are going to be either C mounds or walking B. So it seems like in this case, as soon as he sees nothing A, he's looking at the minimap and he's like, they might be C, but there's no util to indicate that. And he just takes a TP over and he's right. He makes sure to flood onto site and he's able to get 1 and actually get out. And again, this is what I would typically expect out of a Yoru, is this fast rotate thing. But I think what makes Eggsterr so good is the fact that he's able to balance both rather than leaning into one too heavily. Okay, so pretty simple, right? We have fast rotate TP, or we have the whole anchor thing. Is that all Eggsterr has to offer on defense? Well, there's actually 2 more bonus tips that I thought I would show you guys. One is just a trap play with his flashes. I would say this one is pretty standard to trap play on C mounds. He has a combination of his flashes and his sky flash, and basically they're just running it down C, so he wants to make sure he can punish that. Trap plays in general are very good to do, especially if the enemy team isn't ready for it, and we can see him exercise that here. Despite the fact that he probably should have at least gotten 3 and maybe even aced, he at least got 2. And the other bonus tip thing that I have for you guys is the fact that he will sometimes go for info TPs early into the round. In this round here, he's actually not doing a fast rotate TP. he has a TP on backside B. And this allows him to go for an early info TP just to see if there's anyone there. And if they are there, he's in a position just in case they are rushing. I thought that this was a very cool play to do because it allows you to get early info without being too committal. And if they are rushing, you're still in a good position to play for your site hold. Okay, so to quickly wrap up his defense half, pretty much he will either play fast rotate or, to my surprise, actually play a bit more of an anchor type of extremity playstyle where he's looking for a lurker or a fake, with the additional bonus plays of doing flash trap plays and some info TPs. Next, I wanted to cover some advanced things that Eggsterr will do regardless of the half. The first one is using the Yoru clone as a bodyguard. Hopping straight into it, Eggsterr uses the clone to kind of block off the right side as he fights the left side here. And as you can see, the clone buys him enough time so that he can flick back over and then get the second kill as well. Honestly, this one seems pretty simple, but in my experience, it's pretty hard to pull off. The more common way to do this is with the Yoru ult, so let's take a look. The context of the round is kind of important, but basically he knows that this raise is solo because the Cypher was spotted on B. When going for the play, the two things to highlight here is the fact that he's holding W so that he's maintaining speed with the clone, and then also he's kind of like strafing left and right a little bit to make sure it's always in front of him to block any bullets. And then when he finally pulls out his gun, he will then jump out and then just get the kill. Again, it's one of those things that looks pretty simple, but in my experience is a bit harder to do. I think the big thing to keep in mind here is how far away do you cancel your ult from the target? If you're too far away, you won't be able to close the distance in time. And if you're too close, then they're kind of just going to run past the clone and, it kind of defeats the purpose of it. Next up, I have two rounds that I really wanted to look at, but they didn't really fit in any other bucket, so I'm including it here. So in this round, he has a Bucky with the ult, and he's pretty much just immediately ulting off rip to kind of see where the enemies are. This is a fairly common play that he'll do on defense. After only spotting the Vice and making the assumption that he can isolate this duel, he kind of just runs him down, gets the kill, and then immediately takes his TP back to spawn. He ends up catching 3 players trying to fight for spawn because their flank protection just died. To me, what's most impressive about these duels is the fact that his spray control is so good on the second and the third kill. I think most players here would probably burst or tap and kind of overcomplicate the gun duel, but his spray control is really good, and despite the enemies moving, he's able to get headshots with the spray. After that, he kind of just scales out with his util and he just flashes the guy and gets his ace. But really good round that highlighted his early playmaking ability with his ult and then also his fast rotate along with his strong spray control. Okay, so the next round that I want to take a look at is on split. And he pretty much just early peeks B, sees nothing, grabs the orb, and then TPs back to A. So far, this is all pretty standard, but what I really want to highlight is how he goes about the retake. He doesn't decide to group screens or a ramp, probably because the distance of it is a bit too far. So he's going for a TP out of heaven. The craziest part about this play though is that he's able to keep track of his TP traveling the entire time. And then he combos that with his flash and actually takes a TP and gets 2 kills. The fact that he's able to kind of keep track of his TP here is the thing to learn if you are going to play Yoru. I highlighted this on attack, but doing it free flowing like this as part of a retake to me is very, very impressive. And then during the clutch, he tries to go for a fake TP and run and gun with the stinger, which is very viable, but unfortunately he's not able to win the 1v2. Okay, and the last thing I want to round up with this advanced tricks portion is actually just his mechanics. And it's very simple. I pointed it out earlier, but it's the fact that he sprays literally every single one of his duels here. On the fight with Raze here, it goes for 2 separate sprays. And the reason why I call it sprays is because it's not your traditional 2-bullet burst. After getting that kill, he immediately peeks out on the jet and then just immediately commits to the spray despite his first bullet being a bit off, and he just controls the spray back into the head. Most people, after missing their first bullet, will kind of reset and then try to go for another burst and then maybe commit into the spray. But in this case, he just literally commits to the spray and gets the headshot. Unfortunately, his tendency to spray isn't perfect and he's not able to get the kill on the clove here. Hopping into another round, take a look at his fight against the Raze here. He's running gunning, which, whatever, he's trying to get a tag. But the thing that I want to highlight is when he's actually coming out of the cage, he's able to correct his spray despite the Raze strafing, and he's able to end that fight with a headshot. So hopefully you get the point. Eggsterr spray control is really good, and he doesn't really have to cancel his spray all too often. The majority of players that try and commit to their spray just ends up completely whiffing. But in Eggsterr's case, he's able to kind of just commit and still come out on top. Also, if any of you guys are curious, not that it matters, he plays 1600 DPI, 0.15 in-game with the Super Light 2, and then an Artisan 0 mousepad. Okay, so far we've only looked at his ranked matches, so I decided to dive a bit deeper and take a look at one of the games from the Challengers Finals. And what I was looking for is, does his playstyle change in pro play compared to his ranked games? Well, taking a look at pistol round, he's hard contesting one of the extremities, something he also did in his ranked games. In this case, he's just playing contact for his teammate and is able to go 1-for-1. But just in the next round, after he established A control, he fast rotates to C, and then plays for the site hold and is able to get a couple of kills. The difference in pro play versus his ranked games is that he will have Ion anchor for him on A, basically Ion is staying rubble, which allows him to freely rotate towards C and other parts of the map. The other thing to highlight in the pro matches is that the Yoru ult is used a lot more intentionally and comboed with his teammate's util. So on defense here, he early ults, similar to how he did in the ranked game, but this time it's followed up by Kane's with his ISO ult. Then after getting all of that info and setting up Kane's for that kill with his ult, he TPs back to B and is able to get that reaction kill from the enemy team trying to pivot quickly. As you can imagine from an attacker's point of view, this round is very disorienting because you can't really even start the round how you wanted to because they're kind of just running you down, and then when you try to react from all of the pressure, the Yoru is there again and then he just punishes. Taking a look at one of Yoru ults on attack, it's pretty hard to play against as well as a defender. He ends up just ulting in C, clearing the entire bomb site. He spots one player, and that guy just gets hard util dumped by literally everything. It's a fatal, Omen blind, ISO vulnerable. I mean, that guy is literally not going to survive. So he gets that free kill, and then they have the site. The last round I wanted to highlight from this pro match is how he uses his TP on the site execute. So they're splitting A, he opens the tree door, he throws his clone in, pretty standard. His TP is also traveling through site. But if you pay attention to the minimap, the TP is traveling towards backside around the same time that the Fade Prowler is going and getting info, and also when ISO is scaling up on the left side. And I think Eggsterr is aware that his ISO is closing in and they want to set up a pinch, so he takes the TP, draws the attention to him, jumps so he stays alive, and he actually gets the kill. But what I'm trying to highlight here is the fact that he's not afraid to take his TP despite not having a flash, and more so prioritizing the fact that his teammate is scaling and they're going for a pinch. So even if he were to die, the ISO probably would get the kill. That selfless type of behavior to make space, even at the risk of him dying, is one of the reasons why I think he is so good, especially in these pro matches. And honestly, it just lets Kane's shine a little bit more because he's not playing an entry duelist. He typically is playing ISO, which has a harder time making space. So based on the one pro match I watched, I personally think that Eggsterr is one of the more impactful players on this Envy roster, despite not getting as many kills as his counterparts. Of course, the entire Envy roster is insane, and I've seen VODs from literally all of them. Kane's in particular is a hardcore fragger. I mean, I'm sure I'll do a video breaking down his gameplay eventually, but he is also someone to look at as well. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video breaking down Eggsterr, then I'm sure you will enjoy this video where I break down Oxy's gameplay here.